When 12-year-old Amelia opened a dusty leather journal in her grandmother's attic, she had no idea she was about to crack a 40-year-old mystery that would shake the entire music world. Inside those yellowed pages were strange musical notes and cryptic symbols that nobody could understand. But Amelia wasn't like most kids. She could read music like other people read books, and what she discovered made her hands shake with excitement and fear. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll himself, had hidden secret messages inside his most famous songs. Real messages. Coded messages that spelled out actual words when you played the notes in a special way. For 4 decades, these messages sat waiting in songs like Love Me Tender and Suspicious Minds, and nobody knew they were there. Now, the first message Amelia decoded sent chills down her spine. It said, "Find the truth in the harmony." But it was the second message that changed everything. It read, Memphis 1977. Danger. And then the page was stained with something dark red. Something that looked like blood. 1977. That was the year Elvis died. And now Amelia had proof that the king was trying to tell the world something important. Something dangerous. Something that powerful people wanted to keep buried forever. But here's what nobody expected. When Amelia and her music teacher finally cracked Elvis's code and found what he'd hidden, they discovered it wasn't just about money or fame. It was about freedom. It was about an artist trapped by the very people who were supposed to protect him. And the truth Elvis left behind could destroy some of the biggest names in music history. Someone offered Amelia's struggling family $250,000 to keep quiet and destroy the evidence. Men in expensive suits started following them. Threats were made, and Amelia had to make an impossible choice. Take the money her family desperately needed, or honor a promise made by a man who died 40 years before she was born. Watch this whole video to find out what Amelia discovered hidden in a hospital wall, what Elvis's final recording revealed, and how a 12-year-old girl gave the king of rock and roll his voice back after 4 decades of silence. Because this isn't just a story about hidden messages. It's about finding the courage to speak your truth when the whole world wants you to stay quiet. And trust me, you won't believe how it ends. Amelia pressed her nose against the dusty attic window, watching rain streak down the glass like tears. She didn't want to be here. She wanted to be at soccer practice with her friends, or at home practicing piano, or literally anywhere except her grandmother's creaky old house in Memphis. "Amelia, sweetheart, can you bring down that box near the window?" her mother called from downstairs. Amelia sighed. They'd been packing up Grandma Margaret's things all weekend. The doctor said her Alzheimer's was getting worse. Soon she wouldn't remember Amelia's name. Soon she might not remember anything at all. The box was heavier than it looked. Amelia dragged it across the wooden floor and something fell out. A leather journal, its cover cracked and faded like old skin. She picked it up and the pages fell open. Her heart skipped. Musical notations covered every page, but these weren't normal sheet music. Strange numbers floated in the margins. Cryptic phrases were scribbled next to song titles she recognized. Hound Dog, Love Me Tender, Can't Help Falling in Love. Amelia's fingers traced the notes. She'd been reading music since she was 4 years old. Complex symphonies, jazz arrangements, classical pieces that made her teacher shake his head in amazement. But she'd never seen anything like this. Wait. She looked closer. Some notes were circled. Others had tiny arrows pointing to specific measures. Amelia grabbed her phone and took a picture, then zoomed in. The pattern made her breath catch. Certain notes, when isolated, formed a sequence. And that sequence, if you assigned each note a letter like in basic music theory, Amelia's hands started shaking. She ran to the corner where Grandma Margaret's old piano sat beneath a sheet. Amelia yanked off the dusty cloth and opened the journal to the first page. Her fingers found the keys. She played the circled notes from Love Me Tender. Then she reversed them, just like the arrows indicated. Then she combined them with the underlined notes from the second measure. The melody spelled out letters, actual letters. FINDTHETRUTHINTHEHARMONY. Amelia's whole body went cold, then hot. Her grandmother's handwriting filled the margins. Sun Studio 1954, recording session. Elvis asked me to write this down exactly as he played it. Said it was important. Didn't understand why. Elvis Presley. The Elvis Presley. Amelia had grown up in Memphis surrounded by Elvis everything. Elvis museums, and Elvis impersonators, Elvis souvenirs. Her grandmother used to tell stories about working at Sun Studio as a young woman, but Amelia thought they were just old lady tales, exaggerated and fuzzy. But this journal was real. The notations were real, and the message she'd just decoded was definitely real. Amelia, did you find it? Her mother's footsteps creaked on the attic stairs. Amelia quickly closed the journal and shoved it into her backpack. She didn't know why she hid it. Some instinct told her this was important. Private, special. Yeah, Mom, coming. That night, Amelia couldn't sleep. She sat cross-legged on her bed with the journal spread before her desk lamp casting shadows across the pages. She worked through notation after notation, her piano app open on her phone so she could test the sequences quietly. Each song revealed more messages. Some were simple. Trust no one. Others were confusing. Parker lies about everything. But it was the third message that made Amelia's blood run ice cold. She'd been working on a complex notation next to suspicious minds. The arrows were more elaborate here, the numbers more intricate. It took her almost an hour to figure out the pattern. When she finally played it, forward, then backward, then combined, the message emerged letter by letter. MEMPHIS 1977DAN GER. The rest was smudged, the ink bleeding across the page like Grandma Margaret had spilled something on it years ago. Amelia held the journal up to the light, tilted it, squinted at it from every angle. The last words were gone. Amelia knew that date. Every person in Memphis knew that date. August 16th, 1977. The day Elvis Presley died. Amelia's hands trembled as she set down the journal. What danger? What had Elvis been trying to say? And why had he hidden messages in his music instead of just telling someone? She looked at the smudged page again and her stomach twisted. The stain wasn't brown like coffee or water damage. It was dark red. Faded with time, but unmistakable. A blood stain. Amelia grabbed her phone. She needed to show this to someone, but who? Her mom would think she was being dramatic. Her friends wouldn't understand. The police would laugh at a 12-year-old claiming Elvis hid secret messages in his songs. Then she remembered Mr. Cole, her music teacher. He used to be somebody important before he taught middle school. Something about music history. He'd understand musical codes. Amelia texted him, Mr. Cole, I need to show you something. It's about Elvis Presley. You won't believe what I found. She hit send and waited, staring at the journal. Somewhere in these pages was a truth that someone had wanted buried for 40 years. And Amelia was going to find it. Mr. Harrison Cole stared at his phone screen like it might explode. 3:47 a.m. glowed in the corner. He hadn't slept well in years, not since his career imploded. But this was different. A student texting him about Elvis Presley at almost 4 in the morning. He should ignore it. Go back to staring at his ceiling, wondering where his life went wrong. But something about Amelia's message nagged at him. That kid was special. Brilliant, actually. She heard music the way most people heard language. Naturally, instinctively. Kind of like she was born understanding something the rest of the world had to learn. Harrison typed back, School library. 7:30 a.m. before first period. He couldn't go back to sleep anyway. Amelia arrived at 7:15, clutching her backpack like it contained gold. Her eyes had dark circles underneath. She hadn't slept either. Mr. Cole. She slid into the chair across from him, glancing around the empty library. Thank you for meeting me. Amelia, what's this about? Harrison tried to sound like a responsible teacher, not a washed-up historian, desperate for anything to break the monotony of his days. She pulled out the leather journal and placed it between them. Harrison's world tilted. He recognized that handwriting style, the quick, shorthand notations people used in recording studios in the 1950s. And he'd seen dozens of similar journals during his research years, back when he still had a career, back when people still respected his name. "My grandmother worked at Sun Studio," Amelia said. "She wrote this while Elvis was recording." "Look at the notes, Mr. Cole. Really look." Harrison's hands shook as he opened the journal. No, it couldn't be. He'd spent 10 years of his life arguing that musicians in the 50s and 60s embedded coded messages in their work. Warnings about corruption, exploitation, the dark underbelly of the music industry that nobody wanted to acknowledge. Everyone called him insane. Music critics destroyed him. His wife Sarah begged him to stop obsessing over conspiracy theories. When he wouldn't, she left. Took their daughter. He lost his position at the university, lost everything. And all because he believed artists hid truth in their art when speaking openly was too dangerous. "Mr. Cole?" Amelia's voice pulled him back. "Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Show me what you found." His voice came out rough. Amelia pulled out her phone and opened her music app. She played the sequence from Love Me Tender, fingers moving across the digital keys with impossible precision. Forward, backward, combined. FIND, Harrison's eyes filled with tears. He pressed his palms against the table to stop his hands from shaking. "You believe me," Amelia whispered. "You actually believe me." "I've believed this for 20 years, Harrison said. "Nobody else did. It cost me everything I had." He told her then, everything he'd never told a student, everything he'd tried to forget. How he'd discovered patterns in Chuck Berry's guitar riffs that matched coded resistance messages from the civil rights movement. How Little Richard's piano runs contained mathematical sequences that pointed to financial discrepancies in record contracts. How he'd published a book arguing that rock and roll was a revolution not just culturally but literally. A secret language artists used to communicate truths the powerful wanted buried. "They crucified me," Harrison said quietly. "Called me a fraud, a joke. Said I was seeing patterns that didn't exist, that I'd gone crazy." "But you weren't crazy," Amelia said fiercely. "You were right. Elvis proved you were right." Harrison looked at this 12-year-old girl who believed in him when the entire academic world had abandoned him. Something broke open in his chest. Hope, maybe, or purpose. He'd forgotten what either felt like. "Show me everything you've decoded," he said. They worked through the journal together. Amelia's mathematical mind caught patterns Harrison's historical knowledge could contextualize. She found the codes. He understood what they meant. "Trust no one," recorded during Elvis's 1956 sessions, right when his contract with RCA was being negotiated. "Parker lies about everything," 1960, when Colonel Tom Parker took complete control of Elvis's career. Then Amelia showed him the blood-stained page. The incomplete message about Memphis, 1977, danger. Harrison felt ice slide down his spine. "There's more," Amelia said. She turned to a page near the end of the journal. "I decoded this one last night. It took me 3 hours." She played the sequence. Harrison watched letters emerge. PARKERKNOWS. WATCHYOURBACK. THECONTRACTSARELIES. Harrison stood up so fast his chair fell backward. The librarian looked up, startled. "Do you know what this means?" Harrison's voice shook. "Colonel Tom Parker was Elvis's manager for over 20 years. He controlled everything. Every song, every movie, every appearance. Elvis couldn't breathe without Parker's permission." "So Elvis was trying to expose him?" Amelia asked. "More than that." Harrison's mind raced, connecting pieces he'd theorized about for years. Parker had connections everywhere. Record executives, movie studios, maybe worse. If Elvis tried to break free or speak out publicly, they'd destroy him, Amelia finished. Like they destroyed you. Harrison sat back down heavily. Elvis was smarter than me. He didn't try to tell the truth outright. He hid it. I created insurance. The music would outlive everyone trying to silence him. So what do we do now? Amelia asked. Harrison looked at her. This brave, brilliant kid who'd given him something he thought he'd lost forever. A chance at redemption. Proof that he wasn't crazy. That his theories mattered. That his career hadn't been destroyed for nothing. But he also saw danger. If Elvis had been afraid, if he'd felt the need to hide messages instead of speaking openly, then whatever he'd discovered was serious. Maybe even deadly. Amelia, this could be dangerous, Harrison said carefully. If we're right, if Elvis really did uncover evidence of fraud, corruption, maybe worse, then there might be people who still want this buried. Amelia's jaw set stubbornly. My grandmother protected this journal for 40 years. She's losing her memory now. Soon she won't remember any of this. Someone needs to finish what Elvis started. Harrison saw himself in her eyes, that same desperate need for truth that had driven him to ruin his own life. Okay, he said. We do this together, but carefully, methodically. And if anything feels wrong, we stop immediately. Deal? Deal. They shook hands across the table, the journal between them like a bridge connecting past and present, silence and truth, one ruined career and one chance at redemption. The first bell rang. Students would flood the library soon. Meet me after school, Harrison said. We need to find people who worked with Elvis, someone who might remember why he was so afraid. Amelia nodded and carefully tucked the journal back into her backpack. As she walked away, Harrison stared at his hands. They'd stopped shaking, and for the first time in 10 years, he felt like himself again. Amelia's mom didn't ask questions when Amelia said she had extra music tutoring after school. Patricia had been working double shifts at the hospital for months, trying to cover Grandma Margaret's medical bills. She was too exhausted to notice the fire burning in her daughter's eyes. Harrison picked Amelia up in his beat-up Honda Civic at 3:30 p.m. The car smelled like old coffee and older dreams. I made a list, Harrison said, pulling out a wrinkled notebook. 7 people who worked closely with Elvis and might still be alive. 4 are dead. 2 moved out of state and won't talk to anyone about Elvis. I already tried calling. That leaves 1. Who? Amelia leaned forward, seatbelt straining. Delilah Monroe. She was a backup singer on dozens of Elvis's recordings from 1969 to 1976. She lives in Memphis, about 20 minutes from here. Harrison paused. Amelia, she's 82 years old. We need to be gentle. We can't just burst in demanding answers about secret codes. I know how to talk to old people, Mr. Cole. My grandmother is old, remember? The words came out sharper than Amelia intended. Harrison glanced at her, understanding in his eyes. How is Margaret doing? Amelia stared out the window. Yesterday she called me Jennifer. That's my mom's name. She thought I was my mom as a kid. Her voice cracked. She's forgetting me. Harrison didn't say anything. He just drove, letting Amelia's pain fill the space between them. Sometimes silence was better than empty comfort. Delilah Monroe's house was small but pristine, a pale yellow cottage with a garden bursting with late-season roses. Wind chimes sang on the porch. The woman who answered the door was tiny, barely 5 feet tall with silver hair pulled into an elegant bun. But her eyes were sharp, assessing them both instantly. If you're selling something, I'm not interested. If you're preaching, I already found Jesus. And if you're from that estate lawyer's office, I told you people know 3 times already. Ms. Monroe, my name is Harrison Cole. I'm a music teacher at Booker T. Washington Middle School. This is my student, Amelia. We're researching Elvis Presley's recording techniques for a school project. Could we ask you a few questions? Amelia nearly rolled her eyes. A school project? That was his cover story? But Delilah's expression softened. Fine, a school project? Well, why didn't you say so? Come in, come in. I'll make sweet tea. The inside of Delilah's house was a shrine to her musical career. Gold records lined the walls. Not hers, but ones she'd sung on. Photographs everywhere. Delilah young and beautiful, standing beside Elvis, beside Aretha Franklin, beside musicians Amelia didn't recognize. You had an amazing career, Amelia said, genuinely awed. Had being the operative word, sugar. Delilah brought out glasses of tea so sweet Amelia's teeth hurt. Now sit down and tell me what you really want to know. And don't insult my intelligence with that school project nonsense. Harrison and Amelia exchanged glances. My grandmother worked at Sun Studio, Amelia said slowly. She kept a journal of recording sessions. Some of Elvis's sessions had, unusual notations. Delilah's hand froze halfway to her tea glass. What kind of notations? Amelia pulled out the journal. Delilah's eyes widened. Sweet, merciful Lord, she whispered. Margaret, I remember her. Quiet little thing, always writing everything down perfectly. Elvis liked her because she never gossiped, never asked questions. Just did her job. You remember my grandmother? Amelia's heart leapt. Baby, I remember everyone from those days. They were the best and worst years of my life. Delilah touched the journal like it might burn her. What did you find in here? Harrison explained carefully, showing her the decoded messages. Amelia demonstrated the technique on her phone's piano app. Delilah's face went pale. She stood up, walked to a bookshelf, and pulled out a box hidden behind a row of photo albums. I need to show you something. I should have shown someone 40 years ago, but I was scared. I'm still scared. But maybe... Her hands trembled. Maybe it's time. She opened the box. Inside were letters, dozens of them written in a hasty scrawl. Elvis gave me these during recording sessions, Delilah said. Always secretly, like he was passing me contraband. He'd slip them to me when no one was looking and whisper, "Remember the harmony in measure 16, just in case." Amelia's skin prickled. Just in case of what? Harrison asked. I never knew. I thought he was being paranoid. Elvis was complicated by then. Taking too many pills, sleeping too little, stressed about everything. I thought maybe he was getting paranoid, you know? Seeing threats that weren't there. But the threats were real, Amelia said. Delilah nodded slowly. I'm starting to think so. She spread the letters across her coffee table. Read them. Harrison and Amelia leaned close. The letters weren't love notes or friendly messages. They were instructions. Delilah, if anything happens to me, remember the third harmony in Suspicious Minds. Play it backward. Tell someone who'll listen. They're watching everything I do. Can't talk freely. The music is my insurance policy. It'll outlive all of us. Parker found out I've been asking questions about the contracts. He's angry. Says I'm ungrateful. Says I don't understand the business. But I understand stealing, and that's what he's been doing for 20 years. Amelia's hands shook as she read. This was real. Elvis had been genuinely afraid. Did you ever decode the harmonies? Harrison asked. No, I can't read music like that. I sing by ear. I always have. I memorized what he told me to memorize, but I didn't know what it meant. Delilah's eyes filled with tears. All these years, I kept these letters thinking I was protecting his memory. Now I wonder if I was just protecting his secrets. Amelia pulled out the journal entry about danger in Memphis, 1977. Do you know what this could mean? Delilah studied the blood-stained page. Her face went ashen. August 1977, right before he died. She looked up at them, tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. The last time I saw Elvis was August 15th, the day before he died. He called me to Graceland, not to the studio, to his home. That almost never happened. What did he say? Amelia whispered. He was recording something in his private studio, alone. No engineers, no musicians, no one. And he asked me to witness that he'd made the recording and to remember the date. Then he handed me a piece of paper with an address and said if anything happened to him, I should send someone there who understood both music and heart. Harrison leaned forward. What address? The charity hospital he built, the children's hospital on Madison Avenue. He said... Delilah closed her eyes, remembering. He said the real truth is hidden where Parker would never think to look. In something he doesn't understand. Charity. The room fell silent except for the wind chimes singing outside. Colonel Parker was famous for being ruthless about money, Harrison said slowly. He took 50% of everything Elvis earned, sometimes more. But he couldn't touch the charity work. Now that wasn't about profit. So Elvis hid something in the hospital? Amelia asked. Not in it, Delilah said. He said in the walls. I remember because I thought it was such an odd thing to say. The truth is in the walls where only the children can protect it. Amelia's mind raced. The hospital's still there. I've seen it. They renamed it, but it's still operating. There's more, Delilah said. She pulled out one final letter from the bottom of the box. This one was dated August 15th, 1977, the day before Elvis died. Amelia read it aloud. Delilah, this is the last message I'll hide. If you're reading this, something went wrong. The recording I made today contains everything, my voice, the truth, the evidence, but you'll need to decode the music first to find it. The instructions are in the last song, played backward on the anniversary. I tell whoever finds this. The music was always real, even when nothing else was. Thank you for keeping the harmonies safe. E. The last song? Harrison's voice shook. What was the last song he recorded? I don't know, Delilah said. He was alone. He never told me. And the recording... She looked at them helplessly. I have no idea where it is, if it even still exists. Amelia felt like crying. They were so close. Elvis had left a trail of breadcrumbs across 40 years and now they'd reached a dead end. Wait, Harrison said. Recording engineers keep everything. It's an industry obsession. Even personal recordings get cataloged, archived. If Elvis made a recording on August 15th, 1977, someone logged it somewhere. The engineer that day was Frank Sutton, Delilah said. But Frank died in 2003. Did he have family? Amelia asked. Delilah's eyes lit up. A wife? Maureen. She lives in Germantown. I have her number. We send Christmas cards. 10 minutes later, they were back in Harrison's car, headed to Germantown with an address Delilah had written on a piece of Elvis stationery. Amelia clutched the journal in her lap, her grandmother's handwriting blurring through tears. We're going to find it, Harrison said quietly. The truth Elvis wanted someone to hear. What if it's not there? Amelia asked. What if someone destroyed it? Harrison glanced at her. Then we'll have tried. And trying matters, Amelia. Trying is how we honor the people who came before us. Amelia thought about her grandmother forgetting pieces of herself every day. About Elvis hiding truth in music because speaking it aloud was too dangerous. About Harrison, whose entire career was destroyed for believing in patterns others called crazy. Yeah, she said softly, trying matters. The sun was setting over Memphis, painting the sky the same pink and gold as the journal's faded pages. Somewhere in this city was a recording that had been waiting 40 years to be heard, and Amelia wasn't giving up until she found it. Maureen Sutton lived in a modest brick house with a well-maintained lawn and a "Beware of Dog" sign on a fence that enclosed exactly 0 dogs. She answered the door in a purple tracksuit, reading glasses hanging from a beaded chain around her neck. Delilah called, she said, before Harrison could introduce himself. Said you'd be coming, said it was about Frank's old recordings. Yes, ma'am, Amelia said. We're looking for something Elvis recorded on August 15th, on 1977. Maureen's expression shifted, something between sadness and relief. I've been waiting 30 years for someone to ask about that tape. She led them to her garage, which had been converted into a climate-controlled archive. Rows of labeled boxes lined metal shelves, organized by year and artist. Frank Sutton had documented everything. Frank was obsessive about his work, Maureen said, running her finger along the labels. He kept copies of every session he ever engineered, said you never knew when history would matter. She pulled down a box marked 1977, Personal/Graceland. Inside was a single reel-to-reel tape in a protective case. A yellow sticky note on top read, EP August 15th, 1977, do not erase, per artist's instructions. Amelia's hands trembled as Maureen placed it in her palms. Yeah, Frank said Elvis made him promise 3 things that day, Maureen said quietly. 1. Keep the tape safe. 2. Never listen to it himself. 3. If anyone came asking about it specifically, mentioning that exact date, give it to them. Frank kept that promise until the day he died. Now I'm keeping it. Why didn't you give it to the Presley estate? Harrison asked. Maureen's laugh was bitter. Because Elvis's instructions specifically said, don't give this to Parker or anyone who represents my estate. Frank took that seriously. He figured if Elvis wanted it kept from his own people, there was a good reason. Amelia looked at the tape. 40 years of secrets wound around a plastic spool. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for protecting it. Thank your grandmother, Maureen said gently. Delilah told me about Margaret, and about how she kept those notations safe all these years, even though she didn't understand them. That took courage. Back in the car, Amelia held the tape like it might evaporate. We need a reel-to-reel player, Harrison said. The school has one in the AV room. We can listen tomorrow during lunch. No. Amelia's voice was firm. Tonight, we've waited 40 years. I'm not waiting another day. Harrison started to argue, then saw the determination in her face. My apartment. I have my dad's old equipment. He was an audiophile before he passed. Harrison's apartment was exactly what Amelia expected, cluttered with books, old vinyl records, and framed articles from when he was still somebody important. A large photo on the wall showed a younger Harrison receiving an award, his arm around a beautiful woman Amelia assumed was his ex-wife. That was the night before my book came out, Harrison said, following her gaze. 24 hours later, my career was over and Sarah was looking at me like I'd lost my mind. He set up the reel-to-reel player with practiced hands. Amelia watched the tape thread through the machine, her heart hammering. Ready? Harrison asked. Amelia nodded. He pressed play. Static hissed. Then Elvis's voice filled the room. Not singing, speaking. Clear and vulnerable in a way Amelia had never heard in his famous recordings. If you're hearing this, then the patterns worked. Someone smart enough finally figured it out. Amelia's eyes filled with tears. Elvis continued. I couldn't speak freely when I was alive. Too many people controlled my voice, my image, my truth. Colonel Parker owned my contracts and the people behind him. And they owned more than that. They owned silence. But they couldn't control the music itself. Music outlives everything. Managers, threats, fear. Hidden in my songs is evidence of the corruption I witnessed. Not just against me, but against other artists who couldn't fight back. The real contracts, the ones that prove what Parker and his associates did, are hidden where only someone who truly understands both music and heart would think to look. In the walls of the charity hospital I built in Memphis. The one thing Parker couldn't touch because it was for the children. The recording crackled. Elvis's voice dropped to almost a whisper. I'm making this the day before. Before whatever happens next. I'm tired. So tired. And scared. But if someone's hearing this, it means the truth found a way. That's all I ever wanted. Just for the truth to find a way. The tape ended. Silence filled Harrison's apartment like a physical presence. Amelia was crying. Harrison was crying. Two people separated by decades, connected by a dead man's desperate hope that someone would listen. "We have to go to the hospital," Amelia said, wiping her eyes. "We have to find what he hid." Harrison checked his watch. "It's almost 9 p.m. We can't just walk into a hospital and start tearing apart walls." "Then we go tomorrow, after school." Amelia's phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Come home, now. We need to talk." Amelia's stomach dropped. "I have to go." Harrison drove her home in tense silence. When they pulled up to Amelia's small house, a sleek black Mercedes was parked in the driveway. "That's not good," Harrison muttered. Inside, Amelia found her mother sitting at the kit table across from a man in an expensive suit. He was maybe 50, with silver hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. "Amelia!" Her mother's voice was too bright, too nervous. "This is Mr. Victor Ashford. He's a lawyer." "Representing certain interests related to the Presley estate," Victor said smoothly. He stood and extended his hand. Amelia didn't take it. "How did you know?" Amelia asked. Victor's smile widened. "Word travels fast in Memphis when someone starts asking questions about Elvis. Delilah Monroe is a sweet old woman, but she does like to talk. And the Sutton family? Well, let's just say we've been monitoring them for quite some time." Harrison appeared in the doorway. Victor's expression flickered. Recognition, then contempt. "Mr. Cole. Still chasing conspiracy theories, I see. And I thought your professional humiliation a decade ago would have taught you to leave well enough alone. What do you want?" Harrison's voice was cold. Victor pulled out a briefcase and removed a document. "This is a standard non-disclosure agreement. Amelia and her family will sign it, agreeing to cease all investigation into Elvis Presley's unreleased recordings. In exchange, Mrs. will receive a payment of $250,000. Amelia's mother gasped. $250,000? That's enough to cover your mother's medical care for the next 5 years, Victor continued. And Amelia's college education. All you have to do is surrender the journal, the tape, and promise to never speak about this again. Amelia looked at her mother. Patricia was staring at the document like it was a lifeline thrown to a drowning person. They needed that money? Desperately. The medical bills were crushing them. Amelia had heard her mother crying on the phone with bill collectors, had seen the foreclosure notices she tried to hide. Mom? Amelia's voice cracked. Patricia looked at her daughter, really looked at her. She saw the fire in Amelia's eyes, the passion that had been missing since her father left. She saw purpose. Why? Patricia asked Victor. Why offer us money to stay quiet if there's nothing to hide? Victor's smile thinned. The Presley estate prefers to control its own narrative. Amateur investigations create confusion and false expectations among fans. That's not an answer, Patricia said. It's the only answer you're getting. You have 24 hours to decide. Sign, take the money, and forget this ever happened. Or... He paused. Or face the consequences of continuing down a very dangerous path. Are you threatening us? Harrison stepped forward. I'm offering a generous settlement for nuisance claims. What you hear in my words is entirely your own interpretation, Mr. Cole. Victor snapped his briefcase shut. 24 hours. My number is on the contract. He left, his expensive shoes clicking on the worn linoleum. The house fell silent. Patricia stared at the contract. $250,000. Financial security. Safety. Mom, Amelia said quietly. Grandma protected that journal for 40 years. I know, baby. Elvis was trying to tell the truth. He was scared, but he did it anyway. I know. Some things matter more than money. Patricia looked up at her daughter, 12 years old and already braver than most adults she knew. Do you understand what saying no means? We'll keep struggling. I'll keep working doubles. Your grandmother's care might not... I understand, Amelia interrupted. And I know it's not fair to ask you to choose this. But Grandma always said that we're the people we are because we stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Harrison standing protectively in her doorway. You believe this matters? She asked him. Really matters? Or is this just about you proving you were right all along? Harrison flinched like she'd slapped him, but he didn't look away. 3 months ago, I would have said it was about me, he admitted. About redemption, vindication, all that selfish stuff. But Amelia, he gestured at her daughter. She doesn't care about any of that, and she just wants to honor her grandmother's trust and finish what Elvis started. That's pure. That's real. And yeah, maybe I'm using this to fix my own broken life. But Amelia's doing it for the right reasons. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Then she picked up Victor's contract and tore it in half. We have 24 hours, she said. Let's find out what Elvis hid in those hospital walls before they try to stop us. Amelia threw her arms around her mother, sobbing with relief and terror and love. Harrison's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Accidents happen when people dig into the past, especially to little girls and has-been teachers. Back off while you still can. He deleted it without showing Amelia or Patricia. Tomorrow they would search the hospital. Tomorrow they would expose whatever truth Elvis died protecting. Tonight, Harrison would make sure his life insurance was paid up. Because Victor Ashford was right about one thing. This path was dangerous. They just weren't going to let danger stop them anymore. Amelia barely slept. Every creak in the house made her jump. Every car that passed outside sounded like a threat. She kept checking her phone, half expecting another message from Victor Ashford or his mysterious associates. At 3 a.m., she gave up on sleep and pulled out the journal. She traced her grandmother's handwriting with her finger, memorizing every curve and line. By morning, she'd decoded 3 more messages, each one adding pieces to the puzzle. When her alarm went off at 6:30, Amelia was already dressed. Her mother was in the kit, looking like she hadn't slept either. 2 cups of coffee sat on the table, one for Patricia, and 1 hot chocolate for Amelia. I called in sick to work, Patricia said. We're doing this together, all of us. Amelia hugged her mother tight. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I might be making the worst decision of my life. But Patricia smiled when she said it. Harrison picked them up at 7 a.m. His car now contained a toolkit, a flashlight, and a blueprint of the hospital he'd somehow acquired overnight. The children's wing was built in 1975, Harrison explained as they drove. Elvis personally oversaw the design and construction. He visited weekly, played with the kids, donated all the equipment. It was his passion project. How do we search the walls without getting arrested? Patricia asked practically. The hospital's undergoing renovations in the old pediatric wing, Harrison said. I called and said I was a historian doing research on Elvis's charitable work. They gave me permission to photograph the original architecture before they tear it down next week. Amelia looked at him with a new respect. You lied? I creatively interpreted the truth. There's a difference. Harrison's smile was grim. Besides, we actually are researching Elvis's charitable work. We're just hoping to find evidence of fraud hidden in the walls while we do it. The hospital was a sprawling building with new additions grafted onto the original 1970s structure. A bored security guard barely glanced at Harrison's paperwork before waving them through. The old pediatric wing was empty, furniture covered in sheets, walls marked with tape indicating demolition zones. Dust floated in shafts of morning sunlight. Elvis said in the walls where only the children can protect it, Amelia repeated. What does that mean? They searched for 2 hours. Behind electrical panels, inside ventilation ducts, under loose floor tiles, nothing. Amelia felt desperation rising. What if they were wrong? What if Elvis had been caught before he could hide anything? What if 40 years was too long and whatever he'd hidden had already been destroyed? Amelia, look at this. Patricia was standing near a wall painted with a faded mural, children holding hands in a circle dancing under a bright sun. The paint was cracked and peeling. Amelia walked closer. Something about the mural felt familiar. "The children," she whispered. "Only the children can protect it." She ran her hands over the painted figures. Most were generic stick-figure children in bright colors. But one child, almost hidden in the background, was different, more detailed, and wearing a tiny painted crown. Elvis had called himself the King. Amelia pressed on the crowned figure. Click. A section of the wall, barely visible along the painted border, popped open half an inch. "Oh my God!" Harrison breathed. Together they pulled. The panel swung outward, revealing a hollow space behind the mural. Inside was a metal box, sealed and labeled with a single word in Elvis's handwriting: truth. Amelia's hands shook as she lifted it out. The box was heavy, packed with documents. She opened it. Inside were contracts, dozens of them. Original signed agreements between Elvis Presley and Colonel Tom Parker. But these weren't the contracts the public knew about. These had handwritten notes in the margins. Calculations showing how Parker had systematically inflated expenses, hidden revenue streams, and stolen millions from Elvis over 2 decades. There were also letters from Parker to various business associates, thinly veiled threats about what would happen to Elvis or his family if he tried to break free from their arrangement. Bank statements showing money flowing to offshore accounts. Receipts for consulting fees that were clearly bribes to music executives and radio programmers. And photographs. Elvis with bruises on his arms. Elvis looking terrified. A photo of Lisa Marie as a child with a handwritten note on the back. "If you leave, she pays the price." "He was trapped," Patricia whispered, tears streaming down her face. Elvis was completely trapped. Harrison was photographing everything with shaking hands. This isn't just fraud. This is extortion, racketeering, possibly worse. No wonder Elvis was terrified. Amelia found one more document at the bottom, a letter addressed to whoever finds this. She read it aloud. "My name is Elvis Aaron Presley, and I'm writing this on July 4th, 1977. Independence Day. The irony isn't lost on me. For 20 years, I've been a prisoner in my own life. Colonel Parker controls everything, my music, my money, my choices. When I tried to fire him in 1973, men came to my home and showed me pictures of my daughter. They said accidents happen, children get hurt. I never tried again. I've made mistakes. Taken too many pills to sleep, to wake up, to feel human. But I'm not crazy no matter what they say about me. I know what I've seen. I know what they've done. Parker isn't working alone. There are powerful people behind him. Executives, managers, people who've built empires on stealing from artists. I'm just one victim. There are dozens, maybe hundreds of others. Artists who can't speak up because they're scared or because they've been destroyed already. I can't fight them directly, but I can leave evidence. I can hide the truth where someone smart and brave will eventually find it. If you're reading this, you're that person. Please don't let my fear be for nothing. Show the world what really happened. Not for me, I'm probably already gone. But for every artist who comes after me. So they don't have to be prisoners too. The music was always real, even when nothing else was. Thank you for listening. Elvis. The letter was dated 6 weeks before he died. Amelia couldn't stop crying, and Harrison wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Patricia held her daughter close. They stood there in that abandoned hospital wing, holding documents that proved Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, had spent the last years of his life in fear, trying desperately to expose the truth before it was too late. "We need to take this public," Harrison said finally. "Today, before Victor Ashford and whoever he represents can stop us." "How?" Patricia asked. "We can't just walk into a police station. They'll take the documents and we'll never see them again." Not the police, Harrison said. The press. Multiple outlets at once. We sent copies to the New York Times, Washington Post, Rolling Stone, every major news organization simultaneously. They can't suppress all of them. Amelia looked at the box of documents. 40 years Elvis had been waiting for someone to tell his story. Let's do it, she said. They spent the rest of the day at Harrison's apartment, scanning every document, uploading everything to secure cloud storage, preparing press packages. Harrison used every contact he still had in journalism, calling in favors from people who'd abandoned him a decade ago. Some hung up, some laughed, but a few listened. By 6 p.m., they had commitments from 3 major news outlets to run the story simultaneously the next morning. Harrison had written a comprehensive explanation. Amelia had provided the musical analysis showing how Elvis had encoded messages. Patricia had given her testimony about Margaret's journal. It's done, Harrison said, hitting the final send button. Tomorrow morning, On the World Knows the Truth. Amelia should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt exhausted and sad. Elvis had died trying to expose this. He'd never gotten to see justice. Her phone rang, an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Amelia. Victor Ashford's smooth voice made her skin crawl. I hear you've been busy today. How did you... I told you, we've been watching. Did you really think you could walk into that hospital and I wouldn't know? He sighed. You've made a terrible mistake. Those documents aren't going to change anything. You're a 12-year-old child and a disgraced historian. No one will believe you. 3 major news outlets are running the story tomorrow, Amelia said, her voice stronger than she felt. With full documentation, you can't stop it. Can't I? Victor's tone shifted, losing its smoothness. Do you know what happens to people who threaten powerful institutions, Amelia? Ask your teacher. He lost everything, his career, his wife, his reputation, and he was just chasing theories. You're threatening to expose actual crimes committed by people who've spent 40 years covering their tracks. I'm not scared of you. Then you're stupid. The line went dead. Amelia looked at Harrison and her mother, both watching her with worried eyes. He knows, she said. About the hospital, about the documents, about the news stories. Harrison's jaw tightened. Doesn't matter, it's too late for them to stop it. The stories run tomorrow regardless. That night, Amelia couldn't sleep again. She kept thinking about Elvis's letter, about how he died knowing he might have failed, about how he'd left one last desperate message in music, hoping someone 40 years in the future would care enough to listen. She got out of bed and opened the journal one more time. There was one notation she hadn't decoded yet. The final page marked with Elvis's last recording date. Amelia worked through it slowly, carefully. The pattern was more complex than any of the others. It took her 3 hours to unravel. When she finally played it on her phone, the message emerged. THANKYOUFORBEINGBRAVEENOUGHTOCARE. Amelia pressed her hand to her mouth, sobbing quietly so she wouldn't wake her mother. You're welcome, she whispered to a man 40 years dead. You're welcome, Elvis. Outside, a car engine started. Amelia looked out her window and saw a black Mercedes parked across the street, watching her house. And tomorrow, the truth would come out. Tonight, they just had to survive. Amelia woke to her phone exploding with notifications. 6:47 a.m. The stories had gone live. She stumbled to her mother's room. Patricia was already awake, laptop open, tears streaming down her face. Baby, look, she whispered, turning the screen. New York Times. Hidden messages. Elvis Presley's secret war against exploitation. Washington Post. Documents reveal decades of financial abuse against the king of rock and roll. Rolling Stone. The truth, Elvis died. Trying to tell, exclusive documents expose music industry corruption. Every major news outlet had picked up the story. Social media was on fire. #Justice for Elvis was trending worldwide. Musicians were sharing their own stories of exploitation. Lawyers were calling for investigations. The truth was out. Finally, after 40 years, the truth was out. Harrison called at 7 a.m., his voice thick with emotion. "Amelia, turn on the TV, any channel." She did. Every morning show was covering it. Music historians were analyzing the decoded messages. Legal experts were examining the contracts. People were crying on national television about how Elvis had been trapped, exploited, silenced. And they believed it. The world believed it. Amelia's phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. "Don't answer it," Patricia warned. Amelia answered anyway. "Miss?" Not Victor Ashford this time. An older woman's voice, warm and cultured. "My name is Priscilla Presley, Elvis's ex-wife. I wanted to thank you." Amelia's knees nearly buckled. "Mrs. Presley?" "I've spent 40 years wondering why Elvis seemed so trapped, so unhappy despite his success. Colonel Parker died in 1997, and I thought we'd never know the full truth. But you found it. You gave Elvis his voice back." Priscilla's voice broke. "You let the world finally understand." I found my grandmother's journal. I couldn't let it be for nothing." "Your grandmother must be an extraordinary woman to have raised someone like you. Tell her. Tell her Elvis would be grateful. Tell her the king says thank you." After they hung up, Amelia sat on her bed shaking. Priscilla Presley had called her, had thanked her, had said Elvis would be grateful. Her mother knocked softly. "Amelia, there are reporters outside." "What?" Amelia looked out the window. 5 news vans, a dozen reporters with cameras, all camped on their small front lawn. "Oh no," Amelia breathed. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't think—" "Don't apologize for telling the truth," Patricia said firmly. "But we need a plan. Harrison's coming over. He knows how to handle press." Harrison arrived 30 minutes later looking overwhelmed and oddly vindicated. "I've gotten 17 calls from reporters apologizing for how they treated me 10 years ago." 17. He laughed, the sound half hysterical. "They all want interviews about musical codes now, about how I was right all along." "What do we do about them?" Amelia gestured to the reporters outside. "We talk to them," Harrison said. "But on our terms. We hold a press conference. Tell Elvis's story properly." By noon, they'd set up in the backyard. Every major network was there. Amelia stood between her mother and Harrison, facing a wall of cameras and microphones. She was terrified. Yeah, but then she thought about Elvis, standing on stage in front of thousands of people while secretly being controlled by the very people who were supposed to protect him. If he could be brave, so could she. "My name is Amelia," she began, her voice small but steady. "I'm 12 years old. 2 weeks ago, I found my grandmother's journal in her attic. I didn't know it would change everything." She told the story, all of it. The journal, the codes, Harrison's help, Delilah's letters, the tape from Maureen, the documents in the hospital wall. The reporters were silent, captivated. "Elvis Presley couldn't speak his truth out loud," Amelia said, "so he hid it in the one place they couldn't take from him, his art. He made his music his insurance policy. He knew it would outlive everyone trying to silence him." She paused, looking directly at the cameras. "Every one of us has something we're afraid to say. Something we're scared to share because we think we're too small, too young, too powerless. But if we're creative enough, brave enough, we find a way. Elvis taught me that. My grandmother taught me that. And I hope this story teaches someone else." The questions came fast. Amelia answered what she could. Harrison handled the technical details. Patricia talked about Margaret's decades of quietly protecting something she didn't fully understand. Then a reporter asked, "Amelia, there are rumors that you were offered a substantial sum to keep quiet about this discovery. Is that true?" Amelia looked at her mother. Patricia nodded. "Yes," Amelia said. A lawyer named Victor Ashford offered my family $250,000 to sign a non-disclosure agreement and surrender all the evidence. The reporters erupted. Amelia raised her voice. We said no, because some things matter more than money. Some truths are more important than being comfortable or safe or rich. Elvis knew that. He gave up his safety to leave us this evidence. The least we could do was honor that sacrifice. The story dominated news cycles for weeks. Federal investigators opened cases into the estate practices. More documents emerged from other sources. People who'd been too scared to come forward before but now felt safe. The music industry announced sweeping reforms to protect artists' rights. Colonel Parker's legacy was destroyed. The people he'd worked with faced lawsuits, and some faced criminal charges. And Elvis's reputation transformed. No longer just the king of rock and roll, but a symbol of artistic integrity. A man who fought back the only way he could. 3 weeks after the story broke, Amelia visited her grandmother in the memory care facility. Margaret was having a good day. She recognized Amelia immediately. "There's my brilliant girl," Margaret said, her voice weak but warm. "I saw you on television, talking about that old journal. You remember?" Amelia's eyes filled with tears. "I remember everything today. Won't last. Never does anymore." Margaret took Amelia's hand. "But I need to tell you something while I can." "What, Grandma?" "I always knew that journal was special. Elvis gave it to me himself the last day he was at Sun Studio. He said, 'Margaret, you're the only one who writes everything down exactly right. Keep this safe. Someday, someone will need it. Someone brave enough to finish what I started.'" Amelia's breath caught. "Elvis gave it to you directly?" "He did. And he said something else." Margaret's eyes were clear, focused. He said, "I'm hiding the truth in music because music is honest, even when people aren't. Tell whoever finds this journal. Never let them make you smaller than the music in your soul." Amelia was crying openly now. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "Who would have believed an old sound engineer? I was nobody, but I protected it. Waited. And then you came along, my granddaughter with music in her blood and courage in her heart. You were who Elvis was waiting for." Margaret squeezed Amelia's hand. "I've been waiting 40 years for someone smart enough to read it. I'm so proud you were the one, Amelia, so very proud." "I love you, Grandma." "I love you too, sweet girl. Now go, live big, make music, tell truth. That's what matters." Amelia left the facility and found Harrison waiting in the parking lot. He'd been visiting too, bringing Margaret flowers, thanking her for trusting her journal to the right person. "How is she?" Harrison asked. "She's perfect," Amelia said. "She remembered everything today. She told me Elvis gave her the journal himself, asked her to keep it safe for someone brave enough to finish what he started." Harrison smiled. "You did finish it. You gave Elvis his voice back." "We did," Amelia corrected. "You, me, my mom, Delilah, Maureen, Grandma, all of us together." They drove back through Memphis as the sun set, painting the sky the same colors as the faded journal pages. Amelia's phone buzzed, an email from a publisher wanting to buy the rights to her story. A movie studio interested in making a film. A record label asking if she'd consider a tribute album. She deleted them all. This wasn't about fame or money. It was about honoring a promise made 40 years ago by a man too scared to speak his truth aloud. But there was one email she kept, from a music school in New York offering her a full scholarship when she was old enough to attend. "For the young woman who reminded us why music matters," the dean had written. "We'd be honored to help you find your voice." Amelia smiled. She'd already found her voice. It had been there all along, hiding in her grandmother's attic, decoded in musical notes, waiting for someone brave enough to listen. 6 months later, Amelia stood on stage at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They'd created a new exhibit, Hidden Messages, Elvis Presley's Secret Legacy. The journal was there behind glass, opened to the first decoded message. The tape recording, the documents from the hospital wall, photographs of Elvis with the children he'd helped, the hospital he'd built, the music he'd made, and in the center a new plaque with Elvis's final message, the one Amelia had decoded. "Thank you for being brave enough to care." Amelia read it aloud to the crowd. Musicians, historians, journalists, fans. People who'd come to understand that art could be both beautiful and powerful, both personal and universal. "Elvis couldn't change the world directly," Amelia said into the microphone. "But he changed it anyway. By being creative, by being persistent, by hiding truth in beauty and trusting that someday someone would care enough to find it." She looked out at the audience and saw her mother, Harrison, Delilah, Maureen. Her grandmother couldn't travel anymore, but Amelia had FaceTimed her before the ceremony. Margaret had smiled and said, "Make the king proud, sweet girl." "The greatest lesson Elvis taught me," Amelia continued, "wasn't about music or codes or even courage. It was about voice. Everyone has one. And no matter how powerful the people trying to silence you, no matter how scared you are, you can find a way to speak your truth. Maybe it's through music. Maybe it's through art. Maybe it's through a journal kept safe for 40 years. Amelia pulled out her phone and played one final sequence, the last message she'd decoded, one she'd kept private until now. The notes formed words that appeared on the screen behind her. The music was always real, even when nothing else was. Keep singing. Never stop singing. The audience stood. Some were crying. Amelia was crying too. "Elvis Presley hid messages in his song," she said. "We decoded them after 40 years, but the real message was never hidden at all. It's in every song, every note, every beat. It says, 'You matter. Your truth matters. Your voice matters. Don't let anyone take that away.'" Amelia looked at the journal behind glass, her grandmother's careful handwriting visible even from the stage. "Thank you, Elvis," she whispered, "for trusting us with your truth. For believing that someday someone would listen. For never giving up on the music, even when everything else was taken from you." She stepped back from the microphone. The crowd erupted in applause. Harrison caught her as she came off stage, hugging her tight. "Your grandmother is watching the live stream. She wanted me to tell you the king would be proud." Amelia smiled through her tears. "Tell her I love her. Tell her I understand now what she was protecting. It wasn't just a journal, it was a promise. And we kept it." That night, Amelia sat in her room and opened a new journal, empty pages waiting to be filled. She wrote the date at the top, then paused. What truth would she leave behind? What message would she hide for future generations to find? She smiled and began to write. "My name is Amelia. I'm 13 years old. Yeah, this is the story of how I learned that music never lies, truth never dies, and courage is just fear that kept moving forward anyway." Outside her window, Memphis slept. But somewhere in the night, she could almost hear it. The echo of Elvis's voice in every jukebox, every radio, every streaming service in the world. The music was always real, even when nothing else was. And now, finally, everyone knew it. So, where are you listening from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. I love seeing our amazing community from all around the world. If this story of courage and truth touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Together we can spread kindness and inspire others to be brave enough to stand up for what's right. And hey, don't go just yet. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another incredible story that will blow your mind. See you in the next one.